The council chamber stretched out like a vast metal cave, filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Ambassador Jiho sat in his designated seat, watching the chaos unfold before him. The air recyclers hummed quietly, but they could not mask the tension that filled the room. He had been coming to these meetings for 8 years now, and in all that time the elder species had barely acknowledged his presence. The station itself was a marvel of engineering. Apex 7 floated in neutral space far from any star system. It was massive, housing thousands of delegates, their staff, and the infrastructure needed to govern a galaxy. Jiho had learned to navigate its endless corridors, but he never felt welcome here. Humans were newcomers, and the galaxy made sure they knew it. Today's emergency session was different. The war between the Talarian Empire and the Vorath Collective had been raging for 3 years. Billions were dead. Entire planets had been reduced to ash. And now both sides were demanding that every neutral species pick a side. Jiho looked across the chamber at Councillor Vextha, the Talarian representative. The insectoid stood nearly 3 meters tall, with forearms and compound eyes that seemed to see everything. Vextha's chitinous armor gleamed under the lights, and when he spoke, his mandibles clicked with each word. "The time for neutrality has passed," Vextha announced, his voice booming through the translation devices everyone wore. "Those who do not stand with the Talarian Empire stand against us. We will remember who our friends are when this war is won." Across from him, a crystalline being pulsed with angry red light. This was Overlord Thax of the Vorath Collective. Unlike the Talarians, who resembled insects, the Vorath were living crystals that grew in geometric patterns. Thax's body reflected light in sharp angles, and his voice came through as a series of harmonic tones. "Empty threats," Thax responded. "The Vorath Collective offers protection to those wise enough to join the winning side. The Talarians are desperate. They know they are losing." The chamber erupted into arguments. Delegates shouted over each other in dozens of languages. High Arbiter Quellis, the moderator, tried to restore order. She was an Arathi, a species known for their diplomatic skills. Her silver skin seemed to glow as she raised her 6-fingered hands. "Please, honored delegates, we must find a path to peace, not deepen the divisions." But no one was listening. The elder species had already made up their minds. They would pressure the younger races to choose sides, adding their fleets to the war effort. It did not matter that most of these species wanted no part in the conflict. Jiho raised his hand, requesting permission to speak. The gesture went unnoticed for several minutes. Finally, Quellis acknowledged him with a slight nod. "The human delegation wishes to address the council," she announced. Laughter rippled through parts of the chamber. Councillor Vextha turned his massive head toward Jiho, his mandibles spreading in what might have been amusement. "The humans?" Vextha's tone dripped with condescension. "What could your kind possibly contribute to this discussion? You have been traveling the stars for barely 2 centuries. You know nothing of real war." Jiho stood slowly, his movements calm and measured. He was a small figure compared to most beings in the chamber, but he had learned long ago that presence was not about size. At 53 years old, his hair had gone gray at the temples, and lines marked his face from years of thankless diplomatic work. He wore the simple dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, with no decorations or medals to impress anyone. "Honored Council," Jiho began, his voice steady. "Humanity has indeed been spacefaring for only 200 years, but we have been making war for 10,000. We know its cost better than most." "Primitive warfare," another delegate called out. "Fighting with sticks and stones." "We learned to split the atom," Jiho continued, ignoring the interruption. "We created weapons that could end all life on our planet, and we nearly used them more than once. So when we see this war consuming innocent lives, we understand what is at stake." Vextha waved one of his forearms dismissively. "Then you understand you should choose wisely. Your colonies are isolated now, but that will not last. Space is not as empty as you think." "We understand," Jiho said quietly. "That is why we wish to hear all perspectives before making any decisions. We ask for time to consult with our government." "Time?" Thax's crystalline body flashed with yellow light. "Time is a luxury none of us have. This war will not wait for a minor species to make up its mind." High Arbiter Quellis intervened before the argument could escalate further. "Ambassador Jiho's request is reasonable. All species deserve the opportunity to consult with their homeworlds on matters of such importance. We will reconvene in 2 standard weeks." The session dissolved into smaller arguments and negotiations. Jiho made his way through the crowds, nodding politely to the few delegates who acknowledged him. Most simply ignored the human ambassador, too focused on their own concerns. Captain Hayeri was waiting for him at the docking bay where the human vessel was berthed. The Dawn's Promise was a mid-sized cruiser by human standards, though it looked like a toy compared to the massive warships that some species commanded. Hayeri was younger than Jiho, only 37, but she had proven herself a capable commander. Her dark eyes assessed him as he approached. "That bad?" she asked. "Worse," Jiho replied. "They are not asking us to choose sides. They are telling us we must." They boarded the ship and headed for the bridge. The crew moved efficiently around them, preparing for departure. Jiho appreciated the professionalism of his escort. These men and women knew they were often dismissed as primitive by the galaxy, but they took pride in their work anyway. In his private quarters, Jiho activated the quantum communications array. It would take a few moments to establish a secure connection with Earth. Even with faster-than-light communication technology they had adapted from alien designs. He used the time to organize his thoughts. The screen flickered to life, showing the seal of Earth's Defense Command. A duty officer appeared, her expression neutral. "Ambassador Jiho transmitting secure," the officer said. "Go ahead with your report." "Connect me to Admiral Minho," Jiho said. "Priority Alpha." The screen changed, and after a moment Admiral Minho appeared. The old warrior looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. Cybernetic implants gleamed at his temples, relics from a pirate raid 20 years ago that had nearly killed him. "I am listening, Ambassador," Minho said. Jiho took a breath. "The situation has deteriorated. Both sides are demanding we choose. They have made it clear that neutrality is no longer an option. Our colonies are at risk." Minho nodded slowly. "I see, and what is your assessment?" "They view us as insignificant," Jiho said. "They believe we will fall in line like all the other minor species. They have no idea what humans are capable of." "Good," Minho replied. His expression hardened. "Let them keep thinking that. Return to Earth for consultations. We need to have some difficult conversations." Jiho understood the implication. "Should I initiate the protocol?" "Yes," Minho said after a pause. "Initiate Protocol Grey Dawn. It is time we reminded the galaxy that humanity did not reach the stars by accepting the unacceptable." The transmission ended. Jiho sat in silence for a long moment, considering what he had just set in motion. Outside his window, Apex 7 slowly rotated against the backdrop of distant stars. The station had been a symbol of galactic unity once. Now it was just another place where the powerful decided the fate of the weak. But humanity had not survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars by accepting their fate quietly. If the galaxy wanted to force their hand, they would learn what humans did when pushed into a corner. They fought back. 2 weeks had passed since the emergency council session. In that time, the galaxy had grown darker. The war between the Talarian Empire and the Vorath Collective had intensified, spreading like a disease to new systems. Neutral worlds scrambled to choose sides, fearing what would happen if they remained uncommitted. Ambassador Jiho stood in the observation room of Earth's orbital defense station, looking down at the blue-green world below. Home. He had been away for so long that seeing it again made his chest ache. The planet looked peaceful from up here, but Jiho knew that peace was about to be shattered. The door opened behind him. Admiral Minho entered, his footsteps heavy despite his age. The cybernetic implants at his temples gleamed in the light from Earth below. He came to stand beside Jiho, both men silent for a moment. "I got your report from Terran 4, Minho said quietly. "All of it," Jiho closed his eyes. Terran 4 had been a small mining colony on the edge of human space. 347 people called it home. Miners, engineers, families trying to build a new life far from Earth's crowded cities. They had been so far from the war that they thought they were safe. They were wrong. A Talarian raiding fleet had swept through the system 3 days ago. They were not hunting humans specifically. The Talarians had simply wanted to deny the system's resources to the Vorath. The colony was in the way, so they destroyed it. Orbital bombardment from ships that never even bothered to hail the settlers. It was over in minutes. 347 people. Gone. When asked about it, the Talarian command had called it acceptable collateral damage. Not even an apology, just a cold statement that these things happen in war. "The government?" Jiho asked. "Meeting in 2 hours," Minho replied. They want your input. Some are calling for retaliation. Others want to pull back all our colonies and hide behind Earth's defenses. Both options are surrender, Jiho said. If we strike back alone, they will crush us. If we hide, we abandon space entirely. Either way, humanity becomes irrelevant. Then what do you suggest? Jiho turned from the window to face the Admiral. We remind them why humanity survived long enough to reach the stars in the first place. The meeting took place in the underground complex beneath Geneva. The United Earth government had representatives from every major nation and colony. Jiho had briefed them many times over the years, but today the room felt different. People were afraid, and fear made humans dangerous. President Alvarado opened the session. She was a tall woman in her 60s with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had been a soldier before entering politics, and it showed in her bearing. Thank you all for coming on short notice, she began. We face a choice that will define humanity's future. Ambassador Jiho has returned from the Galactic Council with his assessment. I will let him explain. Jiho stood and activated the holographic display. Images of Terran 4 appeared both before and after the attack. The before pictures showed simple buildings, mining equipment, and smiling faces. The after pictures showed nothing but scorched earth and debris. 347 people died here, Jiho said. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the anger beneath it. They died because we are considered too weak to matter. The elder species wage their wars with no regard for us. They see us as primitives, barely worth noticing. Then we need to show them they are wrong, said General Kyung-soo, commander of Earth's largest fleet. He was a stocky man with scars on his hands from old battles. We have 6 battle groups ready to deploy. Give the word and we can hit the Tellarians where it hurts. And then what? Asked Minister Choi, the civilian oversight head. They have hundreds of ships. We would be obliterated. Maybe, Kyung-soo conceded. But we would hurt them first. Admiral Minho raised his hand for silence. There is another option, one that requires courage but not suicide. He nodded to a woman standing at the back. Dr. Yunji has been studying the elder species for the past decade. I asked her to prepare an assessment. Dr. Yunji stepped forward. She was younger than most people in the room, barely 40, with short hair and intense eyes behind simple glasses. She had spent years analyzing every scrap of information about alien psychology, looking for patterns and weaknesses. The elder species have been at peace for most of their history, Yunji began. When they do fight, they follow strict rules. Declared war zones, warning before attacks. Certain targets are considered off-limits. They treat war like a sport with regulations. So they are soft, Kyung-soo said. Not soft, Yunji corrected. Civilized. They have forgotten what total war looks like. Humans have not. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. We know tactics they have never considered because they are too brutal, too unpredictable, too ruthless. She pulled up new data on the display. Both the Tellarians and Vorath have superior technology and numbers. In a conventional fight, we lose. But if we refuse to fight conventionally, if we make this war so chaotic and costly that both sides want it to end, we might force a peace. President Alvarado leaned forward. You are suggesting we fight both sides? I am suggesting we fight the war itself, Yunji said. We declare that we will attack anyone who continues the fighting. We become the wild card that neither side can control or predict. We make peace cheaper than continued war. The room erupted into arguments. Some called it madness. Others called it brilliant. Jiho let them argue, watching faces, gauging reactions. These were good people trying to make an impossible choice. Finally, he spoke. Terran 4 was not the first neutral colony destroyed in this war. It will not be the last unless something changes. The elder species will not stop fighting because we ask them nicely. They will only stop when continuing the war costs more than they are willing to pay. You want to make them fear us, Minister Choi said quietly. I want them to respect us, Jiho replied. Fear is just the first step toward respect. The debate continued for hours. Plans were drafted and discarded. Military assessments were reviewed. In the end, President Alvarado called for a vote. It was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would enter the war not as an ally to either side, but as a force for ending it. The operation was codenamed Checkmate. Admiral Minho would coordinate overall strategy. General Kyung-soo would lead the fleet. Commander Dae-hyun, head of the elite Wraith Corps Special Forces, would handle covert operations, and Ambassador Jiho would deliver the message that would change everything. 3 days later, Jiho was back aboard the Dawn's Promise, heading toward Apex 7. Captain Hieri kept glancing at him from her command chair. Clearly worried. "Are you sure about this?" she asked during a quiet moment. "Once you make that announcement, there is no taking it back." "I know," Jiho said. He carried sealed orders in his pocket. Orders that would set events in motion across dozens of star systems. But staying silent did not save Terran 4. Maybe it is time the galaxy heard humanity's voice. Behind them, hidden in the shadows of deep space, the human fleet was already moving into position. 6 battle groups, each one commanded by officers who understood that they were about to start a fight. They could not win through strength alone. They would have to win through will. Lieutenant Sora sat in the cockpit of her fighter, running pre-flight checks for what felt like the 100th time. She was young, only 25, but she had trained her entire adult life for combat. Now she would finally see if all that training meant anything against aliens who had been flying warships for thousands of years. "You nervous?" her wingman asked over the comm. "Terrified," Sora admitted, "but also ready. They think we are primitives. Let us show them what primitives can do." Across the fleet, similar conversations were happening. Marines checked their weapons. Engineers made sure every system was running at peak efficiency. Medical staff prepared for casualties that everyone knew were coming. And in the flagship's briefing room, Commander Daehyun addressed his Wraith Corps team. They were the best of the best, soldiers who specialized in impossible missions. They would be the tip of the spear, striking where the enemy least expected. "They have the numbers," Daehyun said, his voice quiet but intense. "They have the technology. What they do not have is our determination. We have trained for this. We have prepared for this. Now we show the galaxy what humans do when someone kills our people and calls it acceptable." The team nodded, checking their gear one last time. They wore black armor that could blend with the darkness of space. They carried weapons designed for close combat in zero gravity. Most importantly, they carried the willingness to do whatever it took to complete their missions. Ambassador Jiho watched Earth shrink behind them as the Dawn's Promise accelerated toward Apex 7. In his quarters, he reviewed his speech one more time. It had to be perfect. Every word would be broadcast across the galaxy. This was humanity's moment to either be heard or be ignored forever. He thought about Terran 4, about the 347 people who died because they were considered insignificant, about all the other innocent beings caught in a war they did not start and could not escape. The galaxy needed to change, and sometimes change required a push, or in this case, a punch. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Word had spread that something unusual was happening, and delegates from across the galaxy wanted to witness it firsthand. Ambassador Jiho stood outside the main entrance, taking slow breaths to steady himself. Captain Hieri stood beside him, her hand resting on her sidearm. "Last chance to reconsider," Hieri said quietly. Jiho shook his head. "We passed that point when Terran 4 burned." Inside, the chamber buzzed with nervous energy. The war between the Talarians and Vorath had reached a new level of intensity. Just yesterday, an entire star system had been rendered uninhabitable when the Vorath deployed a weapon that destabilized the local sun. 15 billion people had died. The Council was desperate for solutions, but both empires refused to negotiate. High Arbiter Quellis called the session to order. Her silver skin looked dull with exhaustion. She had been trying to broker peace for 3 years with nothing to show for it but rising death tolls. "Honored delegates," Quellis began, "we gather again in hope of finding a path forward. The situation grows more dire each day. Surely both sides can see that this destruction serves no one." Counselor Vextha clicked his mandibles dismissively. "The Talarian Empire did not start this war, but we will finish it. The Vorath must surrender or face total defeat." Overlord Thax pulsed with angry red light. "Delusional insects. It is you who face extinction. Our fleets have already secured the outer rim. Your supply lines are cut. Lies," Vextha roared. "Our forces advance on every front." The chamber erupted into chaos again. Delegates shouted accusations. The few remaining neutral species huddled together, terrified of being forced to choose sides. Quellis tried to restore order, but her authority was meaningless when no one cared about rules anymore. That was when Captain Hieri sent the signal. Every communication device in the chamber suddenly activated. Holographic displays flickered to life throughout the room. External speakers crackled with an incoming transmission on all frequencies. It was impossible to ignore, cutting through the chaos like a knife. On the screens appeared a simple message in every major galactic language. Humanity requests an emergency address to the full council. This cannot be denied. Vextha spun toward the human delegation section, his compound eyes blazing with fury. What is the meaning of this? You interrupt an official session with your primitive technology? Actually, a calm voice said, we are using your own communication networks. We just know how to use them better than you do. All eyes turned to Ambassador Jiho as he walked down the center aisle. He moved with purpose, his simple uniform contrasting sharply with the elaborate robes and armor worn by other delegates. Behind him, Captain Hieri and 2 security officers followed, their expressions neutral but alert. This is outrageous, another delegate shouted. The humans have no right to demand our attention. We are demanding nothing, Jiho replied, reaching the central podium. We are informing you of decisions already made. High Arbiter, I request permission to address the council. Quellis looked uncertain. The breach of protocol was significant, but the alternative was letting the chaos continue. She nodded slowly. The council recognizes Ambassador Jiho of Earth. Jiho stood at the podium and looked around the chamber. He saw fear, anger, confusion, and contempt. Good. Let them feel off balance. Humans had learned long ago that battles were often won before the first shot was fired. For 3 years, Jiho began, his voice calm but carrying throughout the chamber. Humanity has watched this war consume innocent lives. We have appealed for peace. We have offered mediation. We have asked both sides to see reason. We were ignored. Because you are irrelevant, Vextha interrupted. Your species is barely civilized. You have no place in galactic affairs. You are right about one thing, Jiho said. We have no place in your affairs. But you have made them ours. 2 weeks ago, a Tellarian fleet destroyed our colony on Terran 4. 347 humans died in minutes. When we asked for an explanation, we were told it was acceptable collateral damage. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Most conflicts between elder species involved warnings and evacuations. Civilian deaths were rare, at least before this war. That was an unfortunate necessity of war, Vextha said, though his tone was less certain. Your colony was near a strategic resource we needed to deny the enemy. Unfortunate, Jiho repeated, his voice dropping to something colder. 347 people reduced to unfortunate. Children playing in the streets, teachers preparing lessons, miners working to feed their families, all of them unfortunate. Overlord Thax's crystalline body flickered with what might have been satisfaction. This is what happens to those who fail to choose sides. Neutrality is weakness, and weakness is punished. Thank you for clarifying that, Jiho said. Because humanity has chosen a side. We choose the side of every innocent being caught in your war. We choose the side of peace, noble words, Vextha mocked. But words change nothing. Then let me speak in a language you will understand. Jiho activated the holographic display behind him. Star maps appeared, showing real-time positions of military vessels throughout the contested regions. Red markers indicated Tellarian forces. Blue showed Vorath positions. And green, newly appeared, showed human ships. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed what they were seeing. Human vessels had positioned themselves along major supply routes, near communication hubs and around strategic resources. Dozens of ships that no one had detected until this moment. As of this moment, Jiho announced, humanity is officially entering this war, but we are not joining either side. We are declaring war on both the Tellarian Empire and the Vorath Collective. The silence shattered. Everyone tried to speak at once. Laughter mixed with outrage. Vextha's mandibles spread wide in what looked like genuine amusement. You, the Tellarian roared. You would challenge both of us? Your entire fleet is smaller than one of our patrol squadrons. You are correct, Jiho agreed. We cannot beat you in a traditional engagement. Our technology is generations behind yours. Our numbers are pathetically small. In every measurable way, we are inferior. Then you are suicidal, Thax said, his tone cold. No, Jiho replied. We are desperate. And there is nothing more dangerous than desperate humans who have nothing left to lose. He changed the display to show footage from human history. Brief clips flashed across the screens. Cavalry charges against machine guns. Soldiers storming fortified positions despite overwhelming firepower. Pilots ramming their aircraft into enemy ships. Resistance fighters holding out in ruined cities against superior forces. This is what humans do when faced with impossible odds, Jiho explained. We do not surrender. We do not accept the unacceptable. We fight even when fighting means dying because some things are worth dying for. Barbaric, someone muttered. Yes, Jiho agreed without shame. We are barbarians. We fight without honor. We do not warn our enemies before we strike. We do not limit our targets to purely military assets. We do not follow your civilized rules of warfare because we learned long ago that the only rule in real war is survival. He zoomed the display to show specific human ship positions. See these vessels? They are positioned near your supply convoys, your communication stations, your fuel depots, not your warships. Not your fortified positions, your supply lines, because we know something you have forgotten. And what is that? Vextha demanded. Armies run on logistics. You can have the biggest fleet in the galaxy, but if your ships have no fuel, no ammunition, no spare parts, they become useless metal floating in space, and we are very good at making things useless. Jiho's expression hardened. Starting now, every supply convoy is a target. Every communication relay is a target. Every automated station is a target. We will not fight your warships directly. We will strangle your war machine slowly, cutting off everything it needs to function. You cannot maintain that kind of campaign, Thax argued. You will run out of ships, out of resources. Probably, Jiho admitted. But you will run out of patience first, because we are going to make this war so expensive, so frustrating, so utterly without rules that both of you will beg for peace. He swept his gaze across the chamber. You wanted us to choose a side. We choose the side that says this war ends now. Agree to an immediate ceasefire and binding peace negotiations, or we will make your lives miserable until you do. This is madness, Quellis said, her voice shaking. You are sentencing your species to extinction. Maybe, Jiho replied. But at least we will go down fighting, and we will take enough of both empires with us that the history books will remember we existed. He transmitted a final data packet to every delegate's console. These are detailed intelligence reports on vulnerabilities in both your supply networks. Military bases with insufficient defense, automated systems with exploitable weaknesses, command structures vulnerable to disruption. We know where to hurt you because we have been studying you while you ignored us. You would not dare, Vextha hissed. Watch us, Jiho said simply. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. We have already begun. Check your reports from the Outer Rim. I think you will find several supply convoys are no longer answering their communications. He walked out of the chamber with Captain Hayeri beside him. Bay. 6 months had passed since humanity declared war on both empires. The galaxy looked different now. Scarred, exhausted, ready for something to change. Ambassador Jiho stood once again in the council chamber, but this time the atmosphere was different. No one was laughing at the human delegation anymore. High Arbiter Quellis looked older than when this had started. Her silver skin had lost its luster, and her 6-fingered hands trembled slightly as she called the session to order. Around the chamber, delegates sat in tense silence, waiting to see what would happen next. The council recognizes Ambassador Jiho of Earth, Quellis announced. Jiho did not move to the podium immediately. He let the silence stretch, watching Councillor Vextha and Overlord Thax carefully. Both looked diminished somehow. The insectoid's chitinous armor had chips and cracks that had not been repaired. The crystalline being's light pulsed irregularly, a sign of stress in Vorath physiology. 6 months ago, Jiho began, finally stepping forward, I stood here and told you humanity would make this war too costly to continue. You laughed. You called us primitive barbarians who understood nothing of civilized conflict. You were right about one thing. We are barbarians, and that is exactly why we are still here. He activated the holographic display showing casualty statistics. In 6 months of human intervention, we have lost 31 ships and 2,300 personnel. That represents 40% of our committed forces. By any military standard, we should have surrendered months ago. Then surrender, Vextha said, though his voice lacked its former strength. End this foolishness. We would, Jiho replied calmly. If you would do the same. But our intelligence tells us both empires are planning another joint operation. A final strike to eliminate the human threat before resuming your original war. The silence that followed confirmed the accuracy of human intelligence. Both Counselor Vextha and Overlord Thax refused to meet Jiho's eyes. That would be unfortunate, Jiho continued, because if you force us to our final option, everyone loses, including you. Admiral Minho was reviewing the battle plan one more time when the quantum communication came through. General Kyung-soo appeared on the screen, his expression grave. The joint fleet is assembling faster than we anticipated, Kyung-soo reported. They learned from last time. Better coordination, redundant communication systems, clear command structures. This time they might actually succeed in working together. Fleet status? Minho asked. We are ready. Every available ship is in position. But I need you to understand something, Admiral. If we execute this operation, we will not have a fleet afterward. Win or lose, this will end human naval power for a generation. Minho nodded slowly. He had known this was coming. Everything had been building to this moment. What about morale? The crews know what they are facing. They volunteered anyway. Lieutenant Sora has been particularly vocal about wanting another chance at the enemy. Kyung-soo paused. Permission to speak freely? Always, and this is insane. We are about to throw away everything we built, and for what? A slim chance that we can frighten two empires into peace? No, Minho replied. We are proving that humanity cannot be ignored. That we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. That message will outlast any fleet. The combined Talarian and Vorath armada began its advance 3 days later. 217 warships moving in perfect formation, their commanders determined not to repeat previous mistakes. The human fleet waited for them in the Kiro system, a strategically meaningless location chosen specifically because it had no civilian populations nearby. Lieutenant Sora sat in her fighter's cockpit, running through pre-flight checks she had done 1,000 times before. Her hands were steady despite knowing what was coming. Around her, the launch bay buzzed with activity as pilots and crew made final preparations. Shadow Leader, you have incoming communication from Admiral Minho, her computer informed her. The Admiral's face appeared on her display. Lieutenant Sora, I wanted to speak with you before the engagement begins. Sir? Sora was surprised. Admirals did not usually contact individual pilots before battle. Your record over the past 6 months has been extraordinary. 8 confirmed kills, 17 assists, 0 losses in your squadron. You have options ahead of you, Lieutenant. A bright future if you survive today. Thank you, sir, Sora replied, unsure where this was going. What I am saying is you do not have to be here. We have secured transport back to Earth for essential personnel. You qualify, Sora understood then. The Admiral was giving her a way out. She could leave with honor and live to fight another day. It was tempting. She was only 25. Her whole life stretched ahead if she chose to take it. With respect, sir, my place is with my squadron. Besides, someone needs to teach these aliens how real pilots fly. Minho smiled slightly. I thought you would say that. Good hunting, Lieutenant. Commander Daehyun had a similar conversation with his Wraith Corps teams. They were positioned throughout the combat zone, ready to execute the most dangerous mission of the war, boarding enemy command ships during active combat to disable coordination systems. This is a one-way trip for most of us, Daehyun told his assembled troops honestly. Even if we succeed, extraction will be nearly impossible during the battle. Command has authorized us to fight to the last, but I am giving you a choice. Anyone who wants to stand down can do so now with no shame. Nobody moved. These were veterans who had trained together for years. They trusted each other more than they trusted their own chances of survival. Then let us show them why Earth's special forces are the best in the galaxy, Daehyun said quietly. Not because we are the strongest, but because we never quit. The battle began at 600 Galactic Standard Time. The combined fleet entered the Kiro system expecting resistance. What they found was the entire human expeditionary force waiting for them in a defensive formation that made no tactical sense. They are just sitting there, a Talarian tactical officer reported. Not maneuvering, not launching fighters, just waiting. A trap, Overlord Thax stated immediately. They want us to approach their position. Then we will oblige them, Counselor Vextha replied. But carefully. Maintain formation. Scan for mines, hidden ships, anything unusual. The combined fleet advanced slowly, sensors sweeping space for threats. They found nothing. The human ships simply waited, their weapons powered but not targeting anything yet. When the fleets were within effective range, Ambassador Jiho's face appeared on every ship's communication system, both human and alien. "Commanders of the Talarian and Vorath forces," Jiho said calmly. "You have come here to destroy us. You probably will succeed. Our fleet is outnumbered and outgunned. In a fair fight, we would lose in minutes." "Then surrender," Vextha demanded. "No," Jiho replied. "Instead, we are going to show you exactly what humans do when facing certain defeat. We do not go quietly. We make sure everyone remembers we were here." He nodded to someone off-screen. "Execute Operation Checkmate Final." The human fleet suddenly accelerated directly toward the enemy formation. Not tactically, not with any attempt at self-preservation, but in a straight charge that military doctrine said was suicidal. "They have gone mad," a Vorath commander shouted. But it was not madness. It was mathematics. The human ships were not trying to win the battle. They were trying to get close enough to make victory meaningless. Lieutenant Sora launched with her squadron, accelerating to speeds that made her fighters shake with stress. Enemy fire filled space around her, but she did not try to evade. Speed was everything now. She had to reach the enemy command ship before point defense destroyed her fighter. "Shadow Leader, I am hit," her wingman called out. "Keep going," Sora ordered. "Just a few more seconds." She reached effective range and fired everything she had. Missiles, railgun rounds, even her emergency flares. Most shots missed or were intercepted, but some got through. She was not trying to destroy the command ship, just damage it enough to create an opening. Behind her, a human destroyer rammed a Talarian dreadnought at full speed. Both ships exploded, taking 3 nearby vessels with them. It was a waste tactically, but had exactly the effect intended. It created chaos and showed that humans would trade any cost for any damage. Commander Daehyun's team took advantage of the confusion. They had been hiding in debris fields, waiting for this moment. As human ships closed with the enemy fleet, the Wraith Corps launched from hidden positions, using short-range thrusters to reach damaged enemy vessels. Daehyun himself led the assault on the Joint Command Coordination ship, a neutral vessel that both empires were using to maintain their alliance. He and his team cut through the hull and fought their way to the central computer core. "Plant the device," Daehyun ordered, providing cover fire. His demolitions expert worked quickly, attaching a sophisticated piece of human engineering to the core. It was not a bomb. It was something more insidious, a program that would corrupt the coordination algorithms, making the joint fleet less effective and introducing subtle errors into shared tactical data. "Done," the expert shouted. "But we have company." Talarian and Vorath security forces were converging on their position. Daehyun's team had perhaps 2 minutes before they were overwhelmed. "Long enough. Everyone out now," Daehyun ordered. "I will buy you time." The first month of human intervention rewrote everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Reports flooded into both the Talarian Empire and Vorath Collective faster than their intelligence services could process them. Humans were everywhere and nowhere, striking without warning and vanishing before retaliation could be organized. Lieutenant Sora pulled her fighter into a tight spiral, dodging plasma fire from a Vorath patrol ship. Her squadron had jumped into the system less than 3 minutes ago, hit their target, and now had to escape before reinforcements arrived. The key was never staying long enough for the enemy to mount an effective response. "Shadow Leader, we have company," her wingman called out. 3 more contacts inbound." "Copy that," Sora replied, her hands dancing across the controls. "Execute scatter pattern Delta. Rendezvous at jump point 3. Her fighter dove toward a nearby asteroid field. The Vorath ships followed, their superior sensors tracking her through the debris. But Sora had grown up flying through the cluttered space around Earth's orbital stations. She knew how to use obstacles to her advantage. She threaded her fighter between 2 spinning asteroids, inverted, and came out behind her pursuer. A short burst from her railgun caught the Vorath ship's engine section. The crystalline vessel tumbled away, its propulsion damaged but crew alive. Humans tried not to kill unnecessarily. Dead enemies just made martyrs. Frustrated, humiliated enemies made people want peace. "That is 6 for me this week," Sora reported, grinning as she accelerated toward the jump point. "Who is keeping score?" "Stop showing off and get to safety," her squadron leader replied, though there was amusement in his voice. Behind her, the fuel depot they had targeted was venting its contents into space but not exploding. The human sabotage team had been precise. Damage enough to make the depot useless for months, but not enough to kill the automated maintenance drones inside. It was psychological warfare as much as military action. On the other side of the galaxy, Commander Daehyun watched through his helmet display as his Wraith Corps team infiltrated a Talarian communications hub. They had been inside the facility for 20 minutes, moving through ventilation shafts and maintenance corridors, avoiding the insectoid guards who had no idea humans were even present. "In position," whispered Corporal Minseo. "The team's electronics specialist, execute," Daehyun ordered. Minseo attached a device to the hub's main data core. It would not destroy anything. Instead, it would inject carefully crafted data into the Talarian communication network. Fake orders, misleading reports, and most importantly, footage. The footage showed Talarian military actions that had killed civilians from other species. It showed supply dumps overflowing with food while refugee camps starved. It showed commanders living in luxury while soldiers fought and died. All of it was real, compiled from various sources but presented in a way that made the Talarian public question what their empire was doing. "Upload complete," Minseo reported. "Extracting now." The team moved back the way they had come, silent as ghosts. They would be gone before anyone noticed the intrusion. But in a few hours, millions of Talarian citizens would see footage their government did not want them to see. Doubt was a weapon just as powerful as any missile. Back on Earth, Dr. Yoonji monitored psychological warfare operations from a secure facility deep underground. Screens around her showed the effects of human actions across dozens of worlds. Public opinion in both empires was shifting. People were asking questions. Why was this war still happening? Why were they fighting humans who seemed more interested in embarrassing them than killing them? The latest polling data from Talarian border worlds shows increasing war weariness, one of her analysts reported. Support for the conflict has dropped 18% in the last month. Vorath data? Yoonji asked. Similar trends. Their collective consciousness is experiencing disharmony. Humans are introducing chaos into their ordered thinking. Yoonji nodded, satisfied. This was the real battle. Not ship against ship, but idea against idea. Humans were forcing both empires to confront uncomfortable truths about their war. And truth was often more destructive than any weapon. But success came with costs. Human casualties were mounting. 3 ships had been lost in the past week alone. 47 personnel killed, 112 wounded. Every loss was felt deeply because humanity's forces were so small. Admiral Minho reviewed casualty reports in his office, his expression grim. Each name on the list represented someone who had trusted him, who had believed in the mission. The weight of command had never felt heavier. General Kyung-soo entered without knocking, dropping another data pad on Minho's desk. Latest tactical assessment. We have hurt them, no question. Both empires are diverting significant resources to defensive operations, but they are adapting. Learning our patterns. Expected, Minho replied. We knew this would get harder. What about fleet cohesion? Morale is surprisingly good. Crews understand what we are doing and why. They know the risks. Kyung-soo paused. But we cannot sustain these operational tempos indefinitely. People are exhausted. Neither can the empires, Minho countered. That is the point. We just have to last longer than their political will. It was a gamble. Everything was a gamble. But staying neutral had not saved Terran 4, and it would not save future colonies. At least this way, humanity was forcing change instead of waiting to be victims. The real test came during the second month. Intelligence reported that the Talarian and Vorath high commands, who hated each other with religious fervor, were secretly communicating. They were discussing something unprecedented in galactic history. Ambassador Jiho read the decoded intercepts with growing concern. They are planning to unite against us. Captain Hyeri leaned over his shoulder, scanning the data. Both empires working together? I thought that was impossible. So did we, Jiho admitted. Apparently we have become a bigger annoyance than they are to each other. At least temporarily. The intelligence was confirmed 3 days later when both empires simultaneously announced a temporary alliance. They would pause their war to eliminate the human threat, then resume fighting afterward. It was exactly what human strategists had feared might happen. General Kyung-soo called an emergency meeting of all human commanders. Holographic projections showed officers from across the fleet gathered virtually in the same briefing room. They are assembling a joint task force, Kyung-soo explained, highlighting areas on the star map. Combined Talarian and Vorath ships more than 200 vessels. They will sweep through human positions in contested space, then converge on our main fleet. We cannot fight that many ships, one captain stated the obvious. No, Kyung-soo agreed. We cannot. But we do not need to beat them. We just need to break their alliance. If we can make them distrust each other again, the coalition falls apart. How? Another officer asked. Commander Daehyun spoke up from his position. Humans have been sowing discord for thousands of years. We know how to make allies turn on each other. We just need the right opportunity. The opportunity came sooner than expected. The combined fleet began its operation with impressive coordination. Tellarian and Vorath ships working together, sharing targeting data, covering each other's weaknesses. It was tactically brilliant and strategically terrifying. Lieutenant Sora found herself facing impossible odds. Her squadron was outnumbered 10-1, and they were not facing the usual divided enemy forces. These ships worked together like they had been training for years. Shadow Leader. We cannot win this engagement, her wingman reported. His fighter taking heavy damage, I know, Sora replied through gritted teeth. She was already running calculations. The human fleet could not win a direct fight, but maybe they did not need to. All units execute Protocol Chaos. Target Priority Alpha. Fire on my mark. Her squadron stopped trying to fight effectively. Instead, they flew erratically, launching missiles at seemingly random targets. Most shots missed, but that was intentional. The goal was not to hit anything. The goal was to create confusion. One of Sora's missiles passed dangerously close to a Tellarian ship before exploding near a Vorath vessel. In the chaos of battle, it looked like the Tellarians had fired on their allies. Return fire came immediately as automated defense systems reacted, without waiting for confirmation. Cease fire, cease fire, someone was shouting on the enemy command frequencies. That was friendly fire.
Negative, our sensors show the shot came from your position,
A Vorath commander responded. Within minutes, the carefully coordinated assault was falling apart. Tellarians and Vorath were arguing over who shot first. Ships began maneuvering away from each other instead of maintaining formation. Centuries of mutual hatred could not be erased by a few weeks of forced cooperation. Human forces exploited the confusion mercilessly. They stopped fighting altogether and just broadcast footage of the Allied fleet firing on itself. Real-time video of Tellarian and Vorath ships damaging each other, with helpful captions pointing out which side was responsible for which mistakes. They are sabotaging our ships. A Tellarian commander accused, "You are the ones who fired first," came the Vorath response. The alliance lasted less than 4 hours before both sides withdrew to regroup. They had not destroyed many human ships, but they had thoroughly embarrassed themselves. Worse, they had reminded